Hello and welcome to General Counselling, Montresor's legal podcast. Today we have Manu Kanwar from LexSolutions. Good to have you here, Manu.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Nice to be here, Josh.
No problem. So I've known you for quite a while, but for the benefit of our many viewers and listeners, please could you give a quick intro to yourself and to LexSolutions as well?
Yeah, sure. So I am a lawyer by background. Started out life as a technology media lawyer in private practice, and then I was in-house. Went initially into Yahoo, so I was at Yahoo for 10 years. Had a couple of GC gigs in-house, and then set up LexSolutions, which is a legal consultancy. So having started out as a lawyer, I became more and more interested in legal innovation and legal ops. Yeah. Probably at Yahoo before it was really a thing, and found that I wanted to help other in-house teams and GCs with that kind of work. And then on a couple of the GC roles that I was doing, I was involved in or part of an organisation where the cultures were pretty toxic, and I saw the impact that could have on individuals as well as the organisation. So when I did come to then set up LexSolutions, it was really important to me to have culture as part of that. So LexSolutions, as I mentioned, is a legal consultancy. Yeah. We help GCs and in-house teams on day-to-day work, so providing overflow support and plug-in support for them. We provide support for tomorrow, helping them to innovate and optimize through legal operations. And we provide support through coaching and culture. And often there's quite a lot of cross-pollination between each of those different areas so that you can drive holistic value, both for the legal team as well as for the organization.
Yeah, perfect. I think legal operations can be quite a tricky term because it can be pretty broad. It goes from one end where you maybe are just focused solely on implementing a piece of tech, and it goes to the other where you may be in, a massive sort of FTSE company with almost like a law firm's worth of in-house legal staff and kind of managing them and how they work with sales teams or whatever else, product teams within the business. So can you give what is a good definition? I think a lot of our GCs that are watching, listening will kind of know a bit about it. Some will know a lot about it, but for the people that may be a bit less familiar or thinking about their own internal legal operations, could you give a sort of a definition of what it means to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd prefer the very wide definition or scope of it. I mean, ultimately, it's helping the legal team to really deliver on its purpose, whatever that legal team believes and has articulated its purpose to be. Again, from my perspective, I think it encompasses a lot of things that you've mentioned. Certainly, technology and innovation in that sense, but also, in fact, more importantly, just in relation to day-to-day work and day-to-day processes. So how can we improve what we're doing at the moment? How can we better align with the business colleagues that we're supporting? Yeah. How can we deliver real value? I'd also use it to encompass well-being, because I think there's a need to redefine well-being within our sector, especially. Whilst I'm a big advocate of yoga and meditation, and actually teach those things, I don't think well-being is about that. It's about actually making sure that our practices, our processes, our relationships are optimized in a way to help the individuals be well, but also the team and the organization be well. So I'd also stretch the legal ops definition to encompass that. Okay. And also the value that you're driving, both commercial value for the business as well as value for the legal team. So essentially, it's helping you any legal team to do what they need to do better.
Okay, yeah, no, that's perfect. I think there's an interesting distinction to be made between optimization and maybe utilization, where in a law firm you look at how many hours are people doing, how can we get the most amount of work out of them, Whereas with optimization, yeah.
So you're going to take me to the billable hour early.
Well, not yet.
Let's go straight in there.
We can come on to that.
Yeah.
But no, what it says, yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because optimization sometimes can be about the sort of mental well-being or the environment that someone's in, the culture that they're working in. So how can you help improve that if someone comes to you and says, I want help optimizing the people that we already have?
So, I mean, often you'd start as to where you're at the moment, right? What is your purpose as a team? Even if you haven't articulated it, how is it understood? Can you articulate it? What are the problems that we're trying to solve? What is it that we're here for? And aligning all the legal team around that, or certainly having some clarity for the GC or the head of legal as to this is what I consider the purpose to be and the problems to be, and so on. Then we're not trying to look at what are the challenges that we're facing, in relation to delivering on that, to mitigate those challenges, to deliver on those objectives, and then look to how we can improve and do things better. Some of that will be inevitably just the way people are working with each other. There could be some relationship issues, or there could be some dysfunction within a team. All teams are in some ways dysfunctional and misaligned. It could be a misunderstanding as to the business objectives. It could be the fact that processes are not necessarily up to date or well understood, and so on. So it could be any one of those, which is different to, as you say, to utilization, or to basically getting your team members to do as much work as possible in the hours that are available. That tends not to happen in-house so much. I mean, it does happen within some organizations, and it will obviously happen more so in law firms, because they're measured, according to that performance. But even then, if we want people to work better and deliver a better quality output, and to feel more motivated themselves, then we have to take a more systemic, holistic approach, and we have to think about what matters to them, as well as coming back to saying the purpose of the legal team and the organization, and so on. And then how can we find alignment across those different things? So what we're trying to drive in order to create real value is alignment between individual needs, legal teams' needs, alignment between the relationships, alignment between the internal and external advisors' relationships, and so on. There are lots of different contexts that we need to just step back and have a look at, and then see, okay, so where and how can we optimize better? And what's important to this particular team? What will drive more value for this team in the shorter term? So that kind of activity, or that kind of thinking is difficult to do when you're treading water, or that you're firefighting constantly, and most teams are doing that.
Well, especially at the moment, as we're speaking to a lot of GCs, heads of legals, that are essentially under-resourced, or being told to do as much as possible with as little as possible, whether it's spending on tech, recruitment, obviously for us, consultancies, that kind of thing. So I think it's a particularly pertinent issue at the moment. And given that you mentioned it, maybe we should sort of spend a little bit of time on the billable hour, because that's also very on trend, as it were, in the legal field at the moment. What's your views on that?
So it is on trend. I mean, obviously it continually takes a battering, because it's always there. But there is a lot of talk about it at the moment. I know I saw last night, and I've signed up for a law care seminar talking about it in a few weeks' time. We're looking to run some events and debates around it, to look for a meaningful path. I know you and I have discussed that, so we should pick up that discussion again. And there are lots of commentators out there discussing it at the moment, and trying to find another way. I can see its negative impact on individuals and well-being, and diversity and innovation and quality of output. So it definitely has all of those implications. But I wouldn't necessarily say that at the moment, without having done some of the research and discussions that we want to convene, that it's the be all and end all. That it's the I wouldn't say it's the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily the tool itself that is the problem. I don't think. It's just the way that it's been used. I often use the example of like plumbers and others, right? The plumbers they bill by the hour. But there's not a toxic relationship within plumbing firms generally. I mean, maybe there are with some, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But it's so it's how we've used it and how we expect to use it and how we are measuring each other's performance. If you're doing it solely on the number of hours you're working, you're competing on the number of hours that you're billing, you're demonstrating your worth according to your PEP, as a partner, then all of that is going to lead to toxic behaviors, right? Because it's dysfunctional. Whereas if we use it in a way that is not greed-led, but more purpose-led, then I think there's definitely an approach where we can have the billable hour or use it in a more sensible way without creating dysfunctions within team, without creating mental health issues for people who are striving to just make sure they are keeping their head above water and proving to others, that they can deliver, and creating toxic cultures essentially. So it doesn't need to be that way. That's my point.
Yeah, and I guess at this point, given what's happened recently, it might be remiss not to mention the partner at Pince and Masons. As I saw that you had obviously posted on that previously as well.
Yeah.
What was your take on that?
I mean, I think it's obviously incredibly sad, and that's a moment that the legal industry may take to drive greater change, to really introspect and look at it and say, well, to what extent have we contributed to this? How have we got to where we're at? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? How can we make sure that people are well looked after, that we see it sooner, that people are not measuring or their sense of self-worth according to deals they're doing or the hours they're working or whatever else. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of issues in relation to that case that we are not aware of. So I'm reluctant to put too much analysis on that case. But it is incredibly sad, and I think we should use it as an opportunity to try and find a different and a better way forward, and not let it pass as often these moments do, where a lot of people jump on the bandwagon and talk about how we need greater diversity, how Black Lives Matter, or how we need gender equality, blah, blah, blah. And then after that moment's passed, everyone just goes back to normal and nothing really changes. So I think my overriding feeling is one of slight cynicism, but still a passion to want to have change, but also a bit of anger that how can we keep getting back to this place, and what's going to drive real change.
Yeah, Manu, I agree, and just want to wish the very best to Vanessa Ford and to her family, loved ones, colleagues at this difficult time.
Absolutely. I should also mention, sort of slightly related to that, I mentioned the Law Care doing a seminar in a few weeks about the billable hour. NBC, the Mindful Business Charter, is doing some work around this. They put an open letter out to the profession and are calling for people to sort of collaborate. I'm a big supporter of NBC, and I know Richard well, and we're also doing some work with them slightly related to this. I certainly want to support that initiative. So I've had people reach out to me since that post that I did, but I'd also encourage them to reach out to Richard, or we can always find a way to bring people together.
Yes, no, definitely. I think that maybe brings us on nicely to the human side of being a lawyer, and I see you as a front runner in that space, along with people like Claire Saunders, Dan Kane, who have spoken a lot about what it means to keep the human element to interaction, specifically within legal, and especially at a time when there's always talk of AI and various other kind of challenges to the profession, or innovations to the profession. What does it mean to you, that concept of being human?
So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of talk and various of us that are out there trying to drive greater humanity and purpose within the legal sector. I think it's obviously much needed. And what does it mean to me? It means the ability for us to have like normal relationships and working environments where we're not led by dysfunctional systems or toxic behaviors or toxic cultures, and that we can bring our full selves. We're not afraid to bring our full selves to work. And I know that there's obviously some nuance to that, but ultimately we want and need to be seen by colleagues, by anyone that we want to have connection with. And so it's important that we can create working environments where that's possible, so individuals can thrive, relationships can thrive, and therefore the organization can thrive, because obviously you're going to get a better output of work if your relationships and your culture and your people are happier. So ultimately that's what I'd say it's about.
How much of that is driven by seeing people in person? Because one of the other things we get asked about a lot is other people's policies in regards to hybrid working or working from home. How important is it to see people to you in person?
I think it's always important. I mean, we always know that if you've met somebody in person, you're going to have a better and a deeper relationship, even if you only interacted with them for 5-10 minutes, than if you've spoken to them on the phone or even over Zoom. I remember when we were at Yahoo, we'd be talking to international colleagues, we'd be working with them, and it would be fine. But when you met at a conference, suddenly, when you've gone back from the conference, your relationship with those people is supercharged. It's just completely different. So obviously it's very important. Now, it doesn't mean that we all need to be in the office 5 days a week, right?
Yeah.
So we need to find the right kind of balance, to have those relationships thrive, to give opportunities for people to come together and just be normal with each other, as well as to be able to deliver on their own personal needs and desires, as well as those of the team and the organization. Now, some businesses will need more people in the office for more often, and others won't. Some types of work can be done in an asynchronous way, and other types of work cannot. So you need to look at all of those different things and find alignment again through those different contexts and work out what's the best one for us. And a top-down mandated policy is not necessarily, in fact, more likely not going to be the best one.
Yeah. Okay. And it's horses for courses to a certain extent with that. Sometimes it's not possible. It's cross-border or whatever else. Another issue can be, the kind of people that you start to attract, or the kind of people that you have in your organisation. And we've tiptoed a little bit around the diversity point, but sort of leading on from the hybrid stuff. I mean, how can you make sure that the people you do have and the way that they're interacting is aligned with how you want diversity to be within an organization?
So yeah, I mean, a few things there. I mean, obviously we want to have, I hope that we all want to have. I mean, a lot of people would argue that maybe we don't. Maybe a lot of the profession doesn't want to have. But broadly speaking, most of us want to have a diverse profession from lots of different perspectives and for lots of different reasons.
At least everyone says so anyway.
Yeah,
so I
exactly.
think we can take it as hopefully a given.
As a given, yeah, exactly. And obviously we know that more diverse teams, organisations will gel better. There'll be greater empathy, there'll be greater creativity, there'll be a better quality output, because you're taking ideas from different people with different backgrounds and so on, as long as you've created a safe space for them to be able to do that. So there are lots of reasons why we want to do it, and obviously there's a social impact as well, right? So we want to make sure that we have a more balanced society, and we don't at the moment. So there's lots of reasons why we'd want it. How do we do it? I think is really to look at how we've got to where we are at the moment, and how can we do things in a different way that's really meaningful. So up until now, I think our policies, processes, our initiatives have largely lended themselves to tick boxing through well-meaning, but ultimately that's what ends up happening. So I think we just need to really strip it back and find a way to understand what is the issue here. Let's own it together, and then let's innovate and strategize to find ways in which we can both deliver change, as well as measure that in a meaningful way. I'm sort of trying to address too many different issues in one, I think, so I'm not sure I'm being coherent. But by way of an example, for instance, in the middle of the pandemic, we ran a workshop with Interlaw, where we brought 6 law firms together after George Floyd was sadly murdered, and everyone was talking about how Black Lives Matter. We wanted to see if there was a different way, and if actually things could be and should be different. And middle of the pandemic, all online, 3-hour workshop. And what we did was we applied our signature workshop, which we'd been using for legal ops and legal innovation, but we wanted to use it for something more meaningful, like diversity. And this workshop is curated with a mixture of relationship systems coaching and design thinking. And by accident, Dennis Potemkin and I found that this, just created a really powerful output, because through the relationship systems coaching, you can start the change management really, really early, like right almost at the beginning of the first workshop. And you can align all your stakeholders, you create a safe space for really deep conversations, and then you can get into the ideation, the problem solving, so the solutionizing, in a way that otherwise, would A, take longer, and B, may not be possible. So again, we wanted to apply it to diversity, and we had law firms, 6 law firms, we had partners, we had heads of D&I, and we had some associates, none of whom had met each other, apart from obviously the ones that were from the same firm, and we just approached it from a different perspective. And I think what we got from that was a really powerful roadmap as to things that they could be doing, some of which that they're already doing, and that they would go away and commit to doing like beyond that, in ways that they hadn't necessarily otherwise thought about. So it's really trying to rip up the playbook and say, look, we've got to where we've got to, but how do we do it differently from here?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we have probably come quite far over the last, maybe 20, 30 years, and there are improvements being made. I think still, certainly at the senior level, there's room to make up. But there are a lot of really good thought leaders. We had Sharon Thomas on the podcast, the head of Black Council Forum, and I think there are some people really looking to make a positive change in this space. And I know you personally have looked at one thing in particular. Do you want to tell us a bit more about your law firm maturity index, because that is kind of linked into what we've been talking about on the diversity piece?
Yeah, it's probably linked to a few things that we've touched on. Yeah, but absolutely. So I alluded to the fact that the way things have been done up until now have lended themselves to tick boxing, and D&I has itself got a bit of a bad rap recently, because people are afraid that it just it can lead to tokenism, and that's obviously not what we want. We want to have a truly meritocratic society and organization, but at the same time we want to fulfill our obligations to society and the individuals within it, and we want to have a diverse working team. But the starting point is then what you measure, right? As Peter Drucker said, like what you measure matters. So up until now, we're probably looking at how many female associates have you got, how many have you got at partner level, and so on. Same for black colleagues or those of ethnic minorities and so on. And that's important. but it can also lead to gaming the system. Right? There was a law.com article a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, written by Varsha Patel, they did an undercover report and found that there were lots of instances of brown washing within the pitching process of law firms. So people are being brought in to pitches because of their colour to win the mandate, and they're never given the work. So at that basic level, that's not good for the person that's being brought in. It's obviously not good for the client who's being basically told something that's not necessarily true.
Lied to.
But also then people who are doing the work have seen that black person or that brown person going in and then not getting the work. So it leads to mistrust within the organisation. So it's a really, really bad outcome for a set of outcomes. Also, there was one instance of a girl that had left a firm. Her picture was still being used in a response for a type of work that she wasn't even qualified to do. Right. Now, I don't want to use this as an opportunity to beat up law firms, right? I mean, I don't want to beat them up about the billable hour. I don't want to beat them up about diversity. I want to find a solution. I want to try and work together to do something different. And so the Law Firm Maturity Index then is a way in which, so it's not our work. It's basically a collaboration with a not-for-profit called the Maturity Institute, who for over 10 years have been measuring organizations according to their maturity. Maturity, by their definition, is to what extent are they delivering value, not just to their shareholders, but to all stakeholders. So employees, supply chain, customers, society. To the extent that you're delivering what they call total stakeholder value, you're a more mature organization. The way that they do that is by measuring things like purpose, values, culture, D&I, ESG, innovation, profitability, strategy, mental health, retention, burnout. You can measure all these, what they call key health indicators, so you get a score on each of them, but you also see how they all interrelate and interoperate with each other, and therefore then give you your overall maturity score. So now for the first time, we can take an independent measurement, which is really robust, which looks at things from all of these different contexts, and can allow us to not only spot gaps where there may be gaps between perception and reality, for instance, but also help understand why those gaps persist, and help to forge a new way forward to say, okay, in this organization, this is why it's like this. The associates feel like this, the business support team feel like that, women at this level feel like this, women at this level feel like that. Once you understand this and you can drive those types of pictures and conversations, you can then start to understand how to close those gaps. And it's a great opportunity for us to come together. So, I want the Law Firm Maturity Index, or we want the Law Firm Maturity Index to be something that the profession owns. So that data then is available to everyone, so we can all say, okay, now with this data, we can actually do something more meaningful than we were previously able to do, because this is very systemic, it's very holistic, and that's the type of change that we need to see. So it's essentially a benchmarking tool, but it goes a lot more. It goes a lot deeper than that, obviously, for law firms, but also for in-house teams and GCs to understand their panel better, and then collaborate on areas which are important to them, or areas where they think they can start closing some of those gaps that we alluded to. The other thing that I should also talk about or mention is that their measurement, the Maturity Institute's measurement, is of the organization as a human system. So we were talking earlier about humans and being human, right? And I talked a little bit about what that might mean to me. So it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me when I was talking to Stu, who's Stu Woolard, who's one of the co-founders of the Maturity Institute, because I was talking about relationship systems and humans and how to optimize these for legal teams, to drive better outcomes. And he, with his work at the Maturity Institute, has been talking about human systems and how to measure an organization as a human system. And so there's a lot of synergy in what we were trying to do, and understanding how their work impacts that, and actually understands that, analyzes that, and creates a pathway then for us to be able to improve things, was really profound. So that's why we're backing it, we're supporting it, and hoping that we can get more people involved to drive that change.
Yeah, great. Obviously, you've done it with a few law firms already. If there are people from law firms listening, what are the kind of steps they take to get involved with that?
Yeah, I mean, just reach out. We can tell you a little bit more about it. We can tell you who else is involved. We've got 29 firms represented in the database already at the moment. Yeah. So we might be able to tell you a little bit about where your firm is at.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of that is just from individual respondees as opposed to organisations having done it. But we're picking up a good picture from different perspectives. And then we can show how it helps them. And none of this needs to be public, right? We can work with them to help show them reality internally. And to the extent that there are gaps, that there was stuff that they want to fix or that they didn't realise, then there's every opportunity for them to be able to do that.
Okay, great.
And also for GCs, like I say, who want to understand their panel, or use it as part of their RFP process. So
that's a good point.
That's going on as well.
Not just law firms. Thank you. And if I could ask a bit more of a personal question, what does diversity mean to you? Why is this something that you're particularly passionate about?
Because
putting you on the spot a bit.
Yeah, you are. You are a little bit, but that's fine. Why does it matter to me? I mean, I guess I've always felt, in various contexts, a bit of an outsider, and I don't want other people to feel that way. I know a lot of people do feel that way, and I know from my work as a coach that it's almost a universal feeling for lots of different reasons. So that will take us down a different rabbit hole.
Imposter syndrome type stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll come back there maybe another time or later. I think it's important to me because I want everyone to feel welcome, everyone to feel included, and I want everyone to be able to show up, to be able to deliver the best they can. Because in doing that, everyone wins. The individuals win, the team environment they're working in wins, and the organizations win. And what I don't like to see is lots of talk but not walking the walk, which unfortunately, like I said earlier, creates a bad culture, creates distrust amongst the individuals, but more importantly, it just creates a bad outcome and bad advice, for the client. It's not good. So but from me personally, I think it's because of maybe my own experiences where I haven't felt necessarily welcome or included, and part of that's me, part of that's the culture. And so we need to take intentional effort to make sure that people do feel included. We've sort of skirted around this, that notion and what that might feel like, and how to drive diversity. Another thing that I often talk about is the theory of self-determination, which talks about how people can be really motivated at work, and what you really need, which are basically human rights, human needs. To feel motivated and happy at work. And those three things are connectedness, so belonging, inclusivity, feeling seen, knowing that other people have got my back. Competence, which is the balance between being challenged and being able to succeed. So you don't want to be so challenged that you can't succeed and that you're going to fail, and you don't want to be not challenged that it's too easy. So you need to have that balance.
Yes, it's similar to progress in a lot of things, I
guess. And you've also heard about it more recently in terms of bore out and burnout, right? That balance between the two. You want to be between the two.
Well, if you want to bench press 150 kilos, you don't go into the gym the first day and get under sort of 150. You want to build up gradually towards it without kind of burning yourself out. So I think these analogies with kind of sport and other, like learning languages and things like that. I think is obviously very, very relevant.
Yeah, exactly. You could probably bench press on the first day.
Not in this jacket, I wouldn't try.
And then the third one is autonomy. So you need to have an ability to be able to set your own work, and you're not being micromanaged on everything. So look, these models are not the only way to do things, but we need to be looking to see how we can apply things like this to our day-to-day work to make sure that we drive inclusivity for people in it. But I've gone off a bit of a tangent from why diversity is important to me. I guess again, like part of my own personal experience, but it's also because I think it's eminently possible, and I get really frustrated that it's still not happening.
Yeah, I think we could all agree that there's still progress to be made.
Massive progress, but also massive quick wins.
Yeah.
Like there are so many opportunities where we can drive big change through little effort, and I get increasingly frustrated that we're just not doing that.
Yeah, fair enough. And how does that tie into purposeful alignment? And that's something else that you're sort of have been working on recently.
Yeah. So purposeful alignment it's a coaching model that I've been using with various clients and legal teams, but almost more importantly than that, it's a concept to drive alignment in different areas of your life in a meaningful and easy way. Mm-hmm. So I think alignment up until now has got a bit of a bad press, in that the way that often it's been used is that you need to get aligned with this strategy, or you need to get aligned with XYZ person in this team, and so on. So there's a sense of coerciveness that's attributed to it, whereas purposeful alignment is coming from the inside out, that is just happening a lot more easily. And so I can align myself in a more easy way in relation to a lot of those contexts that we were talking about earlier, whether it's relationships, purpose, projects, and so on. So driving alignment in all those ways means that individual or that team couldn't be in a better place, couldn't be in a more powerful way. And so that's what that model seeks to achieve. Yeah. And it's also we've got, we've basically got, as a humans, we've got 4 misalignments. They're misalignments because they're features for human race. They're features that have made the human race so successful, but they're bugs for individual happiness. So, to some extent, we need to counter our biology to reach satisfaction and happiness, because our biology doesn't really care necessarily about our happiness. It cares about getting our genes into the next generation. That's basically what's happened. So once we understand these misalignments, we can understand how to drive purposeful alignment on a day-to-day basis, on all the triggers that that are going on, a lot of the stuff that we're not happy about without necessarily being aware of it, as well as so the bigger ticket items, like what's my purpose, what do I want to achieve, and so on. So purposeful alignment as a model, as I say, I've been using with individuals as well as teams, to really drive that satisfaction, success, alignment at a human level. But also we've been now bringing it into our innovation and legal ops work, because it just helps to supercharge some of that optimization that we're doing.
That's interesting. And you spoke about sort of aligning teams. One difficulty, I think we're trying to cover all of the major topics here now, but one of the difficulties a lot of leaders have, partners, general counsels, head of legal, whatever, is the difference between generations at the moment, and sort of the millennial into Gen Z. Sometimes it doesn't quite sort of measure up to expectation for people who are more senior, more mature. What's your take on that kind of dichotomy that we seem to have between senior and junior at the moment?
So I think it's obviously incredibly valid, especially as we've got people coming up the ranks who are more in touch with their feelings, more in touch with their needs, less willing to compromise and give so much to environments that are not serving them, and buying into a lifestyle or seeking to achieve a lifestyle that they're not really bought into. And then And then you've obviously got, the older generation that have done it a particular way, that see, these types of attitudes as being relatively entitled and lazy or whatever else. So these are generalizations, right? I mean, obviously there's nuance to all of this.
Of course, yeah.
I think it's great that the younger generation are able to have these strong conversations, and they're able to put boundaries in place that we weren't necessarily able to do, and certainly those before us weren't able to do. I think you're right that there is a need to align, and the first starting point with all of that has got to be through conversation and understanding.
Yeah.
So we need to create environments where we can have tough conversations, but without judgment, and so we can really understand each other and have each other's needs met. So the older generation will have an expectancy in relation to time in the office or doing certain types of work a certain way, whatever. And it's time to understand, well, why do I feel that that's the way to do it? Could there be other ways to do it? And the younger generation to understand, well, why am I expected to do this? How does this make me feel, and what is it that I really need? And obviously they need time in the office, with their superiors, with their partners, to be able to learn off them. Exactly. As well. And in some cases I've heard that partners are not in the office because they're staying at home, working from home more because they've got bigger houses. Yeah. In other cases I've heard they're in the office but the juniors are not coming in. So I think it's different for different organizations, but the starting point has to be having open and frank conversations, aligning on the purpose that we're trying to achieve, and then figuring out, well, why are we not able to do it at the moment, and then how can we do it better. But you need to facilitate that in a way that's safe, and in a way that people feel heard, and in a way that makes sure that you deliver proper, tangible outcomes, not just talk.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that there has to be some sort of compromise. Like there was a partner the other day complaining that they'd asked someone to come in for a client meeting on a Friday and got told by two PQE lawyer, I can't do that, I'm dog sitting, and it's what they thought about that was not great.
Yeah,
partner.
Sure.
But for the sort of junior lawyer, they're thinking, well, I've booked this time. I'm always allowed to work from home here, and actually, if I don't get that flexibility here, maybe I'll move somewhere that does offer me that flexibility. So you can't really have it one way or the other. I think probably it is through kind of conversing, working together, and finding a middle solution for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think if you've done the groundwork in terms of aligning, on purpose as well as behaviors and expectations, then it's a lot easier to have those conversations later. I mean, I've got sympathies for both parties in that conversation that you just, or that story that you've just told. But ultimately, you'd think if you've had the conversation, then the junior wouldn't need, if the partner knew and should have known really that the junior was going to be dog sitting. If the junior is dog sitting, it's going to be very difficult for him to do anything else with that dog, right? If he was sitting at home and he was asking to come in, then you'd think, okay, he should be able to come in, but what's he going to do with the dog? My point is that, conversations prior to that would have mitigated that happening, or just understanding what are the client's needs, like what is the outcome that we're trying to achieve here? Can it be done in a different way? I mean, I don't know where they netted out in the end. One of the foundational exercises that we do in relationship systems coaching is called designing the team alliance. And essentially it's us, or the coach facilitating the team through 4 questions. And it's really the groundwork for either a workshop or the ongoing relationship of that particular team. So essentially it's facilitating through first question being, what's the atmosphere you want to create? How do you want it to feel in this relationship system, this team, essentially? And inevitably get variations of, I want it to feel safe, I want it to feel happy, challenging, fun, impactful, whatever. Okay, so now we've got that and everyone's articulated it. Everyone understands the environment within which they want to work and how they want to feel when they're at work or within this working environment. Second question is, okay, so how do we deliver that? What behaviors do we need to create that kind of an atmosphere? So now everyone's saying, okay, well, we need to be supportive, we need to be open, we need to be non-judgmental, we need to be empathetic, we need to be curious, and so on. And again, they're articulating this. This is coming from them, so they can see this going onto either a virtual or a real whiteboard. So it's real for them. The third question then is, that's great. We've got the atmosphere, we've got the behaviors, but things are not always going to go to plan. There will be bumps on the road. So when things get difficult, how do you want to be then? Yeah. And then you see a shift in the dynamics of the team, because they suddenly realize, oh, well, I've got agency. I can prepare for when things are going to be difficult. And so, okay, we want to be non-judgmental. We want to dial up the empathy. We want to be solution-focused. We want to be really caring. We want to, make sure that we deliver a good outcome, but, still be human with each other, whatever, right? So they'll come up with their own answers to that. But they've now prepared for when there'll be some bumps along the road. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth question is, okay, so what are you individually going to do to be able to create this? What are you going to commit to? That could be something that you're really good at, that you're naturally providing to the team anyway, or it could be something that you need to work on. But then there's some personal commitment to it. And then that's the DTA, the team alliance, that team can carry on through on an ongoing basis. So, teams flex, they change. So the thing about relationship systems is that they're in a constant state of emergence. They're always changing, right? According to people coming into the team, leaving the team, external pressures and so on. But that DTA allows them to be able to flex with that. So they can always look at it and they can always say, oh, does this still apply to us? What do we need to change? What do we need to add? What do we need to take away? So that's always serving that particular team. Yeah. So, it's a very long-winded way to give an example as to how, you can mitigate the conversations between the partner and the junior wanting to dog sit.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you, very, very thorough answer. One thing, right, we want to do a couple of plugs in a moment. I think just before we do that, we need to finish off our legal podcast bingo by probably covering a little bit about AI.
Okay.
I think the two letters that everyone was sort of gagging to hear if they've made it this far.
You did mention it early on.
I did. I gave it a quick one. Yeah. What's your take on it? There was the famous kind of Goldman survey, 40% of legal jobs are going to be wiped out in X number of years, whatever. How big is the effect of this going to be on the legal industry? What have you seen so far? What do you expect on it?
So I think, inevitably the impact is going to be big. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be like fatal or also horrible. It could lead to much better and easier working practices, and in fact that's what we should be planning for and working towards. I think, as you've probably heard and talked about already, there's a lot of hype around it. There's a lot of talk about what it can and will do in the shorter term, which I think's unrealistic. And I think we just need to be a bit more careful and sensible about how we're going to use it, where we're going to use it, what is it that we want to deliver. I think so. We've got various forums in which we're engaged to help GCs and in-house teams about that, and one of them will come up in the plug that we're going to do in a minute, I think. But I think there's a great opportunity, and some of the stuff that we're seeing already in terms of automating and driving greater value and efficiency from really good data is an obvious one, and it's a great starting point. So chatbots or speeding up deals and providing support to businesses where you've already got good data. Because we already know that garbage in, garbage out. If you're applying it to rubbish data, you're going to get rubbish outcomes.
Huge,
And we always say in relation to legal innovation and legal ops, if you are trying to optimize a bad process, or you're trying to introduce tech into a bad process, you're just going to have worse outcomes. You're going to extenuate the bad outcomes. So it's the same kind of thing. We really need to drill down to what is the problem that we're trying to solve here. Is AI the right tool? Can we point it in the right direction? Can it be used in that particular way yet or not? And how can we plan for it in the longer term? as lawyers in in-house teams, we also need to be careful about who's using it in the organization. So obviously we need to prepare AI policies.
Of
we
course,
need to
and data protection comes into it.
Obviously not everyone's putting everything out into ChatGPT, but
hopefully
not. But at least make sure that we've got the right policies, to mitigate that from happening. But I think it's a tremendous opportunity for us. And back to that point about purpose and about humanity within the legal sector, I think that's one that really comes to the fore when you look at AI, because even now, like, people are not necessarily talking about that. I was at an event, Thomson Reuters event, where they had futurist Gert Leonhardt speaking.
Oh yeah.
He wrote a book called Technology versus Humans 8 years ago. So he's saying he now needs to update it in light of AI. But actually, a lot of his findings, still ring true. Okay. But even in relation to AI, I mean, he's talked about, I might forget these now, but I think he talked about the digital revolution, or the technology revolution, the digital revolution, and now the purpose revolution, right? So we really need to align behind purpose in a more meaningful way. So that really resonated for me. But then applying it more strongly to AI, he was talking about what AI can do, what AI can't do, and you shouldn't be using it for what AI can't do.
Yeah.
Uwais Iqbal, who we both know, and is going to be coming to this dinner that you and I are hosting, talks about the fact that you can't use your kettle to make toast, or you can't, use your toaster to boil water. So, you need to apply it in the right particular way. Anyway, so what Gert was saying in relation to AI was that for using it on data to analyze like vast sums of data, making some, understanding patterns and all that type of stuff, it's great, but what can't it do? It can't do empathy. It can't do hunches. It can't do relationships. It can't do consciousness. It can't do purpose.
Yeah.
So actually, these, values, these attributes which are intrinsically human, are going to become more and more important. So let's not try and use the AI to deliver us with morals and hunches and consciousness and purpose. We retain that, and we use it as a tool to drive what we need in regard to those attributes.
Yeah, that's a great analogy with the kettle and toaster. I think there are quite a few red herrings in the AI game. I speak to GC the other day, who said an AI company came in pitching this revolutionary tech, and it was basically like Control F, like finding stuff in documents. So I think you do need to be careful, certainly if you are investing in AI, using AI, to make sure that, as you said, it is actually useful, or at least does what it says on the tin to help the lawyers. Nice. And you mentioned. Oh, did you have something else on that?
No. I was just going to say, in relation to that salesperson trying to sell that AI tool, which is essentially Control F or whatever it might be. I think sales guys in legal tech have got a bit of a bad press for trying to sell a system or a technology that will answer all of our problems, and that inevitably leads to bad outcomes further down the line. Lack of adoption, getting stuck in multi-year annual fees and so on. But I think it's not just the sales guy's fault, right? That's what sales guys do, as we know. So it's incumbent on us to really understand what is the problem that we are trying to solve, what is it that we need, and accept that there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all, suddenly, magic wand that's going to take all our problems away. We need to sit with our problems long enough to understand them and find our own way through them.
Yeah. I would just say not all salespeople are like that.
No, that's true. Actually, I was
I
was very conscious as I was saying that of course you and your team are not in any way like that. Yeah. And there are lots of legal tech sales guys that I know that are not like that.
I know.
So I'm just saying, like, we all need to take a balanced approach on this.
No, I'm just kidding. Great. All right. So I think really broad coverage there.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Massive.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've tried to cover off quite a lot in the hour. Just so before we go, we've got a couple of things that we are JVing on in the near future. Can you give a quick sort of overview of the GC Noble dinner and what's the thoughts behind that?
Yeah. We wanted to create an environment where some GCs could come together in a safe space and have pretty frank discussions, learn from each other, share from each other, and also from an expert that we'll bring in who they'll have an opportunity to interrogate and chat to. But we wanted to make it also meaningful in terms of the output that they get. So we're thinking carefully about how we curate that evening so that we can go through some questions that are important to them, and then share that output beyond the dinner itself. So it's not just coming together for nice food and a chat. Obviously that's important, but it's something more than that. So the concept of no bull is about that, right? So we're not coming here to with any kind of sense of self-aggrandizement or with any other motives. Is really just putting all that to aside to come together and chat and learn and share. So that's the Noble GC dinner, which is a relatively small event. We'll have more of them. The first one will have an AI expert joining Uwais that we mentioned. And that's on the 18th of April.
18th of April, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, anything else?
No, I was just going to say, by the time this goes out, I don't know whether it will have happened or whether there'll be any spaces left. But there'll be more. So if people want to attend future ones, then let us know. Yeah.
Don't worry. This podcast studio is very good. I'll turn it around way before that dinner. Yeah. And then we also are looking at a legal ops event, 9th of May. What's the aim with that one?
Yeah, so Noble Legal Ops workshop and drinks. So the idea behind that is that we'll bring legal ops professionals or people who are interested in legal ops. So there are plenty of lawyers who are doing legal ops on the side of the table, like how a lot of us started a long time ago, because they can't hire a legal ops person, or they're a sole counsel, so they're doing legal ops as well as the day job.
Of course.
So it's open to anyone interested in legal ops. And again, same kind of idea that we're putting all the bullshit aside, we're coming together to understand what really works, what the problems really are. No one's there to be sold anything, and everyone is there to really learn and as I say, put the crap aside so that we can do something more meaningful. It'll be a workshop, so there'll be an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of going through different sort of fun exercises together, looking at different topics, and then we'll be followed by like a drinks reception and chat, and then we'll be sharing the output. Excuse me. Then we'll be sharing the output from that for all of those individuals, so that they can take that away and drive some value in their day to day.
Awesome, that sounds good. You might have the dubious honour of being the first person to swear on General Counselling.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure if we beat
those
out, or
I could do.
It's a family show.
I could do better than bullshit.
Well, so we just ran off the last 10 seconds with you swearing. All right, Manu, thank you very much. That's been a very enlightening conversation.
Thanks again for your for hosting and for your insightful questions. It was really good.
No worries. All right. See you, and see you next time on General Counselling. Thanks everyone for listening.